And welcome back to my library. So this is my books that I have from my university library. So this is stuff that I'm doing presently. And I've got notes for some of them, so I'm just going to look at the document here. I hope that mouse click isn't too annoying. So the first one here is called The Social Psychology of Organizations by Katz. And I think this is, where is this? Oh, this is 78. So the reason I had a look at this one, just a few pages of it, is because it talks about, and I've got a note here about people processing organizations and people changing organizations. So like people with a hyphen processing, people with a hyphen changing organizations. And so, for example, it gives the example of people processing would be like a law firm or a job. You're going into a place for them to help you look for a job, like a headhunter. That would be people processing. And then people changing would be like mental hospital or a school. So I was kind of looking at those aspects and how those things are different. So that's kind of why I looked at that. And I also asked the question on here in my notes, what if schools worked this way? What if they worked as a people processing organization as opposed to a people changing? So anyways, that is that one. So I am dabbling in a little bit of organizational theory, so that's what that stuff's about. That's that one. And okay, what's this one? So there's not going to be a lot of covers here. So for example, here's this one, there's no cover. Children's Rights and the Wheel of Time. So this one is by 1979. This one is by Boulding, Alice Boulding. And I think I've read one of hers before, but now I don't know. So what is this one about? I don't even really know here. I'm not sure what it's about. Children and youth as objects, protection and victimization. Children and youth as subjects, thinkers and doers. Declaration of Human Rights to be extended to persons under 21. Wow. Yeah, so that's probably why I have that book. Okay, I don't know what the Wheel of Time thing is about, though. Okay, so here's another one that's not gonna, says not much of a cover. In Our Own Way. That's what this one's called. By In Their Own Way. In Their Own Way, discovering and encouraging your child's personal learning style. This is by Thomas Armstrong, and I wonder if that's the same author as my neurodiversity book. Where is it now? I don't know, I can't really see it from here. I think it is. It's certainly Armstrong. So this is published 1987. So this one has the formal test trap. Giving children at home what they might not be getting at school. The inner blackboard. Cultivating the imagination in learning. The learning network. The doors of perception, helping children come back to their senses. So, teaching with feeling, opening the heart to learning. So this is more student-centered. This takes the assumptions of agency, essentially. What that means is children have autonomy, and that we should respect that autonomy, and that children can and should have responsibility in their learning. And if they're being disruptive and they don't care about what they're doing in school and blah blah blah, then essentially you don't have a problem of behavior. you have a problem in the child doesn't want to do what you want him to do, and that should be respected. That's that line of thought, I guess. I'm just looking at what else I've got for orientations here. Okay, I can show you a book I'm reading right now. So this one does have a cover. So Revisting. So the original book is called The Culture of School and the Problem of Change, and then the author reissued the book and edited it and all that and updated it and added a section on the back, and then he put the revisiting word in there. So the author is Sarason, and what was this? This was 96, published in 96. So this is an interesting book so far about change and why change has been really slow in the education system. And the author basically states it's because of the culture of the school, but that means a lot more than that. That means he makes the point that the school is a lot more than the people in the school and the building. The school is a lot more than that. It's also the parents of the kids in the school. It's the school boards. It's the politicians that are involved in the Ministry of Education and blah, blah, blah. So there's all that stuff. He also takes a very critical approach to teacher unions, which you don't see very often, because that's politically correct, right? Stuff. There's nothing bad about unions, right? They're all good and all of that. So it's nice to see some critical approaches to unions and how unions have contributed to lack of change in education. So yeah, it's been pretty good so far. So that's that one. Okay, here's a book that I picked up because of the title. So there's no cover. It's called Politics, Markets, and America's Schools. So of course this is going to be another try on the private schools, free market schools, that kind of stuff. So this is 1990 by Chub and M-O-E. So I haven't read this yet, so I don't know what it's about other than what I just said. So it's supposed to be the private sector, how the private sector can enter the field and blah, blah, blah. So, okay, how about this one? So this one's called Institutional Neurosis. And this is an awesome book in terms of what I'm looking for. 3rd edition by Russell Barton. 1976, this one, but the original was published I think it was maybe in the 60s. 1959 was the first one published. And this is basically about institutions. Now, the classical conception of institutions are mental hospitals. If you're being, like for example, if you say someone has been institutionalized, usually you think that they've either been sent to jail or they've been sent to an institution or sent to a mental hospital. I mean. But, okay, and so given that, there is effects that occurs to people who are in institutions, and this author is calling it a neurosis. And I'll show you the picture here at the very front of people who are in. Hold on, let me switch back to so I can see the camera, just to make sure you can see these pictures. So he shows pictures of patients in mental hospitals that have they're kind of slunched over, and they have their hands tucked kind of on their stomach there, and they're kind of like they have that body language going on, and it's called something. It's oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to find it. Anyways, that posturing is actually this author diagnoses it as an effect of being in an institution. And you probably already can project where I'm going with reading this, is because even in the mildest sense, this might be going on in the schools. And the author actually mentions that his use of the word institution can envelop also, lost person camps and boarding schools and something about military. But anyways, I should read you, I gotta read you this a little bit of how he defines it. Institutional neurosis is a disease characterized by apathy, so you don't care about anything, lack of initiative, loss of interest, submissiveness, sometimes no expression of feelings of resentment at harsh or unfair orders, lack of interest in the future, and an apparent inability to make practical plans for it, a deterioration in personal habits, loss of individuality, resigned acceptance of that things will go on as they are, unchangingly, inevitably, indefinitely. I think that says huge volumes to even society, especially politics, and how little has changed in even politics, what people want from their government. If they, all of us have gone through schools in which our ability to control our own lives was infinitesimal. So why do we think we can do that in adulthood? There's certainly a pessimism that's added. And this is it. I think this is some really interesting stuff. So I think that stuff's pretty awesome. Okay, here's a book. I've not read this yet. It's called Lost Child in the Woods. Lost Child in the Woods by Louv, L-O-U-V. And let's see here. Just going to get the datings. 2005, 2008. Lost Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. So I thought that was a neat subtitle. So you can probably infer what it's about. It is about certainly Western, or well, certainly non-Western, non-European schools have children have been more and more removed from nature and removed from being outside even, and so it is I assume it is a take on what children have lost in not having that connection with their environment, that environment in which they live in, nature and trees and animals and frogs and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that should be interesting when I get through that one. Okay, what's this one here? So this one doesn't have a cover. The Design of Education. So this is probably a dry one. The Design of Education by Houle, Houle, H-O-U-L-E, 1996. I've read another book he wrote. I think it was on adult education. The History of Adult Education, something like that. So I have not read this one yet, though, so I assume it's about the design of education. I don't have much to say about it. I haven't read it yet. Okay, here's a book. Questioning Leadership. The Greenfield Legacy. So Greenfield was an organizational theory professor, a researcher. And so this is a book this is an edited work, so it's got a whole bunch of authors in it talking about Greenfield and his how he influenced educational administration, which I'm not really in. But anyways, the only reason I have this book is I'm interested in a little bit in organizational theory, so looking at schools as institutions. So that's why I have that one. I've read a little bit of it, but not very much. Okay, here's a book that I haven't read yet either. 100 Languages of Children the Reggio Emilia approach. So that is a separate methodology. So it's supposed to be more child-centered and all that. So let's see. Overview of the educational philosophy and practices of the city-run early childhood program of Reggio Emilia. So that's a person from Italy. So sort of like Montessori. Montessori was also Italian. Let's see. Yeah, so it's about that, about teaching that way, I guess. Okay, so here's a book. It's called. It has a neat title actually. It's called Researching Children, Researching the World. So as the title implies, it's also looking at, it's about creativity though as well. But it is it's a child-centered perspective in terms of researching children who are learning and that autonomy. But it's also about a research program, an education program in, I think it's England, that encompasses it fosters creativity in a separate way. It brings in teachers, it brings in cultural people from the community, and there's another group of people, I think mentors or something like that. I'll show you a picture from it. So things like this, it would organize for the kids. So there's someone with a Roman in their hair, and so I'm sure he's speaking about that history. So anyways, the reason I have it is because it is I guess it's also a methodology of teaching, or education programming, I guess, a program to, I guess, provide kids with a lot of experiences. And that's kind of the forefront of that setup. So that's why I have that one. And I have read that one. I have notes on that one. Okay, here's another book. This is a book I actually have to read for a course. It's from the library, though I didn't buy it. It's called Schools and Societies by Brint, 2nd edition. So this is also supposed to be about, well, let's see here. It says, schooling as a social institution. Compare schooling in industrialized and developing countries. Discusses major purposes of schooling: transmitting culture, socializing young people, sorting youth for class and occupations. I talked about that earlier, as in not much has changed. Okay, now this is, if you're familiar at all with education, you'll be familiar with this author, Alfie Kohn. So I'm also reading this for a course. It's actually a course that I designed with a professor. So it's just me and him in the course. So no contest, the case against competition. So his perspective, of course, is that competition in school is destructive, and I would agree with him for the most part. Certainly I also have read by him The Homework Myth, and I have notes on that. I have not read this one yet. The only thing I'm interested in reading and to see what his perspective is on this is there's no problems with competition in the adult world in terms of the free markets and the economy and occupations and all that. But I don't think competition has a role in the education of young children. I think that should be a safe space. I don't think competition is necessary. So let's see what he says about that. Okay, here's another book. I didn't even know I had this. This is a book on, there's no cover. This is a book on Grundtvig. That's Grundtvig. He's a Danish educational, I don't know, he's not he wouldn't call himself an educational theorist. He was really just a teacher. But he created what's called folk schools in Scandinavian countries, Norway and Denmark, Norway and Finland and Sweden. So I have notes. I read a book. I had to take it back to the library. It was called, I know the subtitle was A Danish Pioneer. I don't know what the first part was, though. I know that it was from 1931. But it was a pretty awesome book on Grundtvig. It was very well written. It had a good historical account of him. And I guess I have another book here to read as well on Grundtvig. But he is a pretty classical teacher. And the reason why I'm interested in him is because in the folk schools, they're called folk schools in Scandinavian countries. But these schools are set up to be very much building of relations between teachers and students. And it also saw the teaching, it saw teachers as not being a career, but as being a temporary community outreach, I guess you could say. Grundtvig saw teachers as people who would come in from the community and relay their skills for a time, like a few years, if that, and then leave. And then other people would come in. So of the time of Grundtvig, which is the 1800s, the early 1800s, people would come in that were artisans or stoneworkers or like any trade or then anything in the business world, whatever. And they would teach for a few years and then they would leave. And they would inspire youth that way. He did not see teaching as a career. What else about Grundtvig? He also, Grundtvig is also very religious. He's probably half known for religious stuff, half known for education, I would guess. But he also was a lot about storytelling and teaching from the heart as opposed to lesson plans and planning stuff. He was a lot more into teaching from stories and experiences of people. That's why he advocated for teachers to be people who would come in and then leave again, to provide as much variety for the students as possible. He also advocated for voluntary, that schools must be voluntary. Actually, there's a really good quote about that. I think I actually should find it because it's a really good quote. So, for example, this is a quote. Ideally, Grundtvig felt that the place of primary education should be the home. So, that speaks for itself, I think. What else? From his experience of both public and private teaching, he preferred the latter, believing that the former almost unavoidably made too great an appeal to the teacher's vanity and the competitive spirit of children. A living education is only found where the ear is as free as the mouth. I thought that was a pretty good quote. So essentially, he voluntary, that schools should be voluntary, and I think that needs to be done for sure. So that'll certainly improve the quality of education too if kids were showing up. Okay, so here's another book. So it doesn't have a cover or anything. It's Education and Development of Reason, 1972, by edited by Dearden, Hurst, and Peters. So part 1, a critique of current educational aims. Education as a process of growth. And then it says reason, that's part 2. Education and reason. Autonomy in education. Can virtue be taught? So there's that one. I'm not quite sure. I think I'm like a lot of the books I pick up, I don't remember why I picked them up in the first place. But I'm sure I'll flip through that one. Okay, and the last book I have from the library currently is this massive one, which doesn't have a cover also, but it's huge. And it is Handbook, if you can believe that. Handbook of Research on Teacher Education. So this is just something to flip through quickly. Obviously not going to read the whole thing because this book is huge. But it is, I think I was grabbing this just because I wanted to have a look at, I know there's a handbook that I wanted to look through. I think it's available online through my library called Handbook of Research on Socialization. But this one I picked up, I'm not sure why now, because I'm not really interested in teacher ed too much. But I got it anyways. I don't know. So anyways, so I've got lots of notes on education stuff. Like I said, once I'm done with the book, I usually drop it back at the library. Although I don't actually have a maximum number of books I can have out, so I don't have to do that. But I don't want to have tons of books here. So, like for example, the ones I just went through, they're probably like what, 15 here. So I got quite a few books from the library. But if you have questions about education, I can certainly comment. If I can comment right in the like if you leave a comment under this video, I can just leave a written comment. Or if it's something large enough, I can do a video on, and that I also have enough stuff to talk about with it. And like I said, I have all kinds of annotations for different books on education. So I might even do a video of that. Talking about them, just going down my annotations. Like I've got a Word document. It's actually 168 pages. How many words is it? Let's see what the word count is. Oh, maybe it's not going to tell me. What's the word count here? Word count. 47,000. So, anyways, 168 pages of annotations on various books. So, and again, annotations are comments and quotations from a book. So, yeah. So, anyways, leave comments if you are interested in anything to do with education. And if I can comment, I will. And if it's a big enough topic, I'll just do a little video on it. But again, I think what I'll do is I'll do another video just like this, and I'll go through some of my annotations about various titles. And then again, if someone wanted more info on it, then I can make a separate video. But I essentially, the purpose of these library videos is if there's a certain book that you want my take on, I don't mind doing little separate series for that. As a second, like I have my video game series. I don't mind doing a few series once in a while on a book, especially if it's on education, because I'm already doing that now. I'm just simply writing it in paper form for various assignments. So yeah, so let me know what you think of the library series as well. Leave your comments under any of the videos, and I guess I gotta do one more of these though on the annotations. So I will see you next time, or talk to you next time, or something like that.